Following on Michael's great keynote is a panel on Asia's startup ecosystem. Asia's economies are the fastest growing in the world, with an emerging middle class nearing 1 billion people. Also, specifically in the startup space, Alibaba's IPO was the largest global IPO ever. Here to share their insights on the Asian startup ecosystem are Adriana Tan, Kalina King, Darius Chung, Mario Berta, and Elias Ghanem. Moderating this panel is Michael Lintz. Please welcome Michael Lintz again.
It's been a while since I've seen you guys, and it's good to be back. We found a group of entrepreneurs from Asia. I just told you the entire marketing story. They're going to tell you the real story. So please welcome Mario Berta. Mario is a, I would say, former CEO of Easy Taxi. You all know, I'm sorry Mario, but you all know Uber. I would say Easy Taxi is a kind of, sort of the same concept in Southeast Asia. And Mario grew it big in the region. Great to have you here, Mario. Adriana. Adriana is a founder of Woobi. Woobi is a mobile financial services startup in Asia as well, which is focused on low-income women. Good to have you here. And we have Elias. Elias has a different view on Asia since he's traveled, worked in Asia, but also in the Middle East. So he can give a different view of maybe the differences between Asia and the Middle East. Elias actually founded a new startup called Teller, and formerly was GM of PayPal in Asia. And Kalina. Good to see you again. We met during 500 Startups, the Geeks on the Plane tour in July in Asia. Kalina is the director of the General Assembly, which is an educational company which is supporting entrepreneurs in Asia. And Darius, 99.co. Good to have you here, Darius. All the way from Singapore. And Darius is the founder of 99.co, a tech startup which helps guys like me that are moving to Singapore find a place to live. Well, to start off, when we look at the Singapore example, Singapore is well known, at least the Singapore government is well known for investing in the startup ecosystem. And I've had questions, is this a good thing or a bad thing for the ecosystem? Mario, can we start with you?
Yeah, so, I think this comes down to governments that have a long-term vision and they really want to diversify their economy. We all know that Singapore is mainly finance and real estate based. So they have a view to actually diversify the economy, and they understand that technology is a safer bet for the longer term. I actually reside in the Philippines for most of my time in Asia, which is exactly no longer term by the governments. So the companies that you mentioned in your slide, IdeaSpace and Kickstart, are 100% financed by private corporations. So they're actually, in Asia we have a phenomenon called the conglomerates, right? So it's a family that has interest in basically every single sector: real estate, infrastructure, technology, water supply, airlines, finance. So those companies are the family-owned companies. They're gonna put in money. They're putting money into vehicles and hiring money manager to invest their money. So I think in Asia we choose different scenario, right? So private initiative and public initiatives.
Adriana, can you elaborate?
All right, so as a Singaporean who has, benefited greatly from many government schemes, not necessarily the ones in startups, I think that the Singapore government's ability to pull off great feats is truly astounding. But in certain matters such as them coming up with many different types of grants, many different types of match funding, etc. I really question whether they have the ability and the nimbleness to truly invest in areas that are going to be the next growth areas. And I think if you look at the example of our close neighbor, Malaysia, Malaysia's done some really big strides in the last couple of years, but if you go back even further, you see that the big contrast is in how this public money has had an impact on Malaysia in its early years when it could have done more in a tech startup ecosystem, whereby giving out so much money so quickly and so quick and too fast has created a network of what they call entrepreneurs, people who are just setting up companies to get grants, but not actually do very much with it. So I think that I'm personally more skeptical about public money as a whole, but I'm glad it's there. It's just not for everybody.
Elias, do you think government money is bad for entrepreneurship? What's your experience?
Is what, sorry, again?
Do you think government money is bad for entrepreneurship?
I think government money is excellent to kick the process, and having lived in Asia and get access to public money was easy. And it helped a lot e-commerce to start. What I noticed coming to the Middle East is public money does not exist. And this is where I saw that it was very important to have it as a kickstart. Very happy to have this initiative happening here with this significant push behind it. So public money is great to kick the process. It's dangerous to live on it because you don't confront the reality of what the market is about.
Kalini, can you tell a bit about, you've been in Hong Kong and in Singapore. Can you tell a bit about your experience, what you have seen?
Sure. So General Assembly is a venture-backed education company that was started in New York City. And when coming to Asia, we started in Hong Kong, not in Singapore. And we're now looking at coming to Singapore. And it's been, Hong Kong is has a startup ecosystem that's pretty much up until very recently been ignored by the government. And it's a world of difference in terms of the funds available and support programs. So from my experience, I think when public funds are used to support incoming companies and also to support learning of skills, that's something that Singapore has done a lot of, is subsidizing tuition costs and programs to get their population more educated and more confident in being entrepreneurs. I think that's super relevant. It's not to say that in Hong Kong things haven't been happening. I would just say the difference in public funds is quite acute, and so Singapore's just gotten that kickstart. So I'm excited for what is going to happen in Lebanon.
Darius, as an entrepreneur and a founder of a tech startup, have you had benefits from government support?
I certainly did benefit a lot. I think most startups benefit a lot from government support in a lot of general benefits like tax benefits and employment benefits and infrastructure and so on. To your question, I think I have a slightly schizophrenic view of this. I think governments are good at doing macro things, and Singapore spending almost 6% of its GDP on R&D, on IP, is the only country that's close to Israel's spend. Is that sort of thing that I think is good at and should continue to produce fundamental innovation. What is bad at is to figure out which company to give money to specifically. For example, it has kind of almost anybody in Singapore could get 50,000 to start a new company. So what ends up happening is that you get all this talent who start companies that shouldn't be started and get stuck in them for 3 years and not really helping the companies that should grow. So that's how I view it.
Thank you. One of the things we've seen as an investor, we've seen a lot of countries, a lot of startups, we've seen a lot of things happen. We've heard the most crazy stories about regulations and how difficult it can be to build your company in Asia. Mario, what is your, I would say, craziest or funniest story you can share with us in your experience in Asia?
Well, you know, EasyTaxi is owned by Rocket Internet, so we can't really do so crazy stuff. We do crazy stuff, but not that crazy. It's very diverse. So the transportation space is very, very aggressive. We have a very strong competitor in Asia called Grab Taxi, and then we have Uber, and then there is us. So we have three strong, very well financed and very well managed companies, and we going after exactly the same people, drivers to start with, right? So, for instance, in the Philippines, we hire, let's say, go-go dancers, and we went to taxi garages to convert drivers.
That's a good strategy. Okay.
I personally select the go-go dancers. Yeah, it was fun.
So, Adriane, what's your most amazing story
So I'm from Singapore originally, but I've always been in love of the idea of doing a truly regional business. And for me, Jakarta was the best place to go, just for the sheer numbers and cultural fit, I think, personally. So, just as I thought I knew it all, I mean, I speak the language, I know my way around, I've been there for so often. I found out the crazy, funny story was that I was talking to a lawyer, a startup lawyer, and she told me everything I needed to do to incorporate. And then she said, and this is really important, and I thought she was going to tell me some fine point of the law, but she actually said, if you sign any legal documents in Singapore for your Indonesian company, you have to go to the Indonesian embassy and take a selfie of yourself and the person signing it with you in front of the Indonesian embassy. Like, you have to see the document and the embassy in the background. And I was like, whatever country in the world requires that you take a selfie, I don't know. Maybe the one that posts the most number of Instagram photos in the world, Indonesia, but it's like a practice, a best practice, my lawyer said. So that's pretty funny.
I haven't heard of taking selfies in Europe or the US, so that's kind of crazy. So Elias, what experiencing Asia and the Middle East, what's your...
In fact, I have an experience that happened to me yesterday. In fact, I was in Payment Indonesia. I was in Jakarta at a conference there. And surprisingly enough, a large company, a large retailer, e-retailer said, you know what we would love to do is have 95% of our e-commerce on cash on delivery. And that shocked me. We are all in this area of cashless society. And the guy said, I'd love to go to 95% of cash on delivery. And when we asked him, kind of, you are going against the rhythm of things. And he said, payments in Indonesia are so basic. Everything is about bank transfer. And bank transfer takes 10 steps and an abandon rate of 40%. That the only way for me to reduce this abandon rate is flip it down to a 10% abandon rate is where cash on delivery is. And if it's what it needs to take me to get into, to grow my e-commerce, I will do it. Which for me is very counterintuitive. We are in the 21st century. We want to move to e-business and e-money and e-economy. And large e-commerce are saying, unless payments improve, we are heading back to the age of stones and doing cash on delivery. Shocking, but which at this time is an opportunity.
So, Karina, what is your funny or crazy story?
Sure. I guess this one's a bit about, working within different cultures. So in the States, I think the idea of being in a co-working space, people in an office using laptops, all of that is fairly standard by now. In Hong Kong, we, for reasons we're venture-backed from the States, weren't able to get an HSBC account, bank account for 9 months, which meant that when people had to pay their tuition, okay, you can pay by credit card, you can pay by PayPal. They didn't like that very much because it's scary transacting on the web. You can pay in cash, or if you need to, you can make a personal bank transfer to my bank account. And we had a few potential students come up to us and with their families in tow and basically say, how can we trust you? You don't have an address on your business cards. You all use laptops. How do I know you're not going to take my money and run away from Hong Kong? Not your average, not your average transaction, but that we've heard that sort of tone or sentiment from a fair number of our students, and it's only now 2 years in where we feel we have a main campus, we have a neon sign, we have real estate in Hong Kong, we're established, and we're starting to get that trust from consumers.
And Darius, what about you? And besides me bugging you for a house, but what about you?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a lot of funny stories. I think there are funny stories when disastrous things happen to our friends, then they become funny. But from what I see it, I have a slightly maybe depressing story actually. This was in the last company. We used to sell a mobile security software that we partner with telcos to do a revenue share to sell it to their consumers. So one of these days I was in a specific country with a specific telco that we were pitching our service. And very strangely, the same night after that, we get a very strange phone call to come and meet us, which is one of the managers who was in the meeting, but not basically the boss or the decision maker. So the managers called us out to our hotel lobby and basically told us that, hey, you know, I send out 16 million SMS every month. There's a regular alert or reminder SMS that remind people to pay bills. So what apparently he does is that he regularly cut them by 3/4 and take roughly 10 million SMS that he sends out and customize them to whatever will and whimsy he feels like, and use that as a marketing tool that he then resells it out to third-party companies for a fee, obviously, and a hefty fee, and he just basically pockets the money. And this is one of the realities of what Asia still looks like, what developing countries in Southeast Asia still looks like. And if you're competing with competitors that use tactics like that, so sometimes it can get quite strange how you figure out your tactics and strategies.
While we're sitting here, and you are all very, as I know you, very, very experienced, if you could give, I would say, the people in the audience, and I'm going to ask you another question later on for the startups, but if you want to give the people in the audience some advice about how to build a startup ecosystem, and I'm going to ask you to try and do it in 2 or 3 sentences, what would this advice be? Mario, start with you.
So 2 main things. The way to manage people is very different. I feel myself split between being a dad and a mentor with my employees across the region, and that's also, it's valid for Singapore, which is very sophisticated, but relationship is a very, very big component. People are money driven, but especially relationship driven, that then translates into money. So be very patient. Patient is the essence of success. If you go there very hardcore, let's say more hardcore American selling ways, might be very difficult to be successful. And I was coming like this, and I have to adapt. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you. Adriana.
Could you repeat your question?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you another question later on, but the first question is, with your experience in the Asian market, with government, startups, different venture capital firms, to the audience, what kind of advice can you give them about how to build a startup ecosystem? What's necessary here for a good startup ecosystem?
For an ecosystem
here. Yeah, what advice can you give the people here to build a good startup ecosystem?
I think the most important thing is you need to stop thinking about startups as a glamorous thing, because it's not. Like, sometimes I'm in restaurants, and especially after some of the early Singapore startups got funded and got sold, you would hear people, like, mostly bankers, saying, oh, this guy just sold his company, it's so great, I'm just gonna go and start my own tech company, and all I need is a programmer, right? But you need to watch out for that part. Like, make sure you never say that, and make sure you never let anyone else say that. It's never just about the programming. So you need to think about how different is your idea, right? You might think that your idea is great. You're going to be the next Facebook. You want to protect it, which is fine. But you really need to immerse yourself in the grunt work. You need to understand the technology. You need to understand how it works. You need to understand the relationship of money to what you're trying to do. And more importantly, you need to understand how to build something that users want. So very often, I think even a lot of us in startups do that. We jump into building a product without having clear idea of, is this something that the market really wants? So you need to test and test very, very often and get as much data as you can. And really just learn as much as you can from all the best people in the business, and never have like the condescending point of view that technology is just like this side show that you don't necessarily need. You need to invest in a great tech team. You need to learn it yourself. If possible, you need to learn to code right now, if that's what you want to do. I think that's what every founder or everyone aspiring to be a founder should do at the bare minimum. So it's a full-time job. You'll never see a lot of your friends ever again, and you need to be prepared for all these ups and downs.
Thank you. Elias, what is your takeaway?
My takeaway is I'm very lucky here to mentor a crowdfunding startup here in Lebanon. And in every session of mentorship, I start saying, you have 2 minutes to sell me your company. And for the first, I don't know, 10 sessions, they systematically failed. When I stop them at 2 minutes, they haven't said anything. So in fact, my message is very simple. Keep it very short. Be able to sell your company at any time with less than 10 words. The 11 words will be forgotten. The 10 words will be remembered. So keep it short, keep it simple. If it goes after 10 words, the guy will be interested and he will come after.
Thank you. Kalina?
Sure. I'd like to focus this part of the conversation and separate out supporting startups versus supporting and driving towards building a startup ecosystem. So for startups, or for the startup ecosystem, find like-minded individuals, organizations like yourself who are passionate not just about building their startup or having that succeed, but about building Lebanon's startup ecosystem, and meet up, share, meet up regularly. Find a space, if you don't have one already, where it's open to the community and all of those amazing connections can happen. Be proud of what you're doing and keep on doing it. In Hong Kong, Startups HK started with 2 individuals and then 5 individuals meeting monthly for a year and 2 years. And then more people came on board and it snowballed, and now that list is 12,000 people, and all of their events are, hundreds of people at a time. It takes time, but find like-minded people, share, connect, and keep on moving.
Darius?
I'm extremely biased, so I'm going to go with saying this. Find a big house, put the best software engineers in there, fund their lifestyle, get rid of the MBAs.
A very clear...
McKinsey.
A very clear advice. One of my friends used to say, being in a startup is as romantic as chewing glass. So it's really a tough and difficult journey. I respect all you guys, and I would like to thank you very, very much for flying out to Lebanon and being here on stage and giving your free advice. I would actually take the chance to, as soon as they're off the stage, grab them and ask them for more about how they can help, because again, these are phenomenal people. Thank you so much. Hand of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.